what we believe in, I mean, without any compromises, and it's stated on our website, Faith Family Farm. And because of that, that's simplistic in its own way, but yet it really does hit the high points. So when we speak of core values, I mean, really, we feel without question everything that we've been given is because our faith is our most critical component. But then we were taught by my father and my uncle to work hard, not be afraid of that, always treat the worker with respect, and be ethical in everything we do. And it has proved to be successful.
I mean, you've been doing it your whole life. So
Right.
one of the thoughts in my mind was, what is one of your earliest memories with food?
That's a good question, Stephen. Actually, we began when my father and uncle had Colace brothers. That started back in the early 60s, and they had a cantaloupe packing shed. And when there were 6 sons in the 2 families, and when we turned 10, our mothers would drop us off at the packing shed, and we'd work all day long, and sometimes that was 12 hours or whatever. And that was my earliest introduction to a work schedule. But as we grew, we just loved to work. I mean, produce is very exciting. Produce is something, it's never the same. And I've been in full time now for 55 years. And I will tell you that not one of those years is even close to being the same as another year. The weather dictates it, insect, labor, market demand, quality of your crop. So it's very exciting, and I've enjoyed that immensely.
Yeah, 55 years, and you turn 70 tomorrow. I know,
Wow.
Just hearing through the grapevine, you've been a big mentor and figure for a lot of people. Is there anybody that comes to mind that for you through the years of going within the industry and this family business that's been a big mentor?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I was blessed like you are with your father. My father was that to me. He was a man of strong faith, and he loved his wife and his children, and all of that really was cemented into my inner being, and that became very natural to me. And I would say my father without question. And then I actually had the privilege to work under my Uncle Tony, and he was the one that oversaw the growing and the harvesting of the crops. My father was the one that was the salesman and handled all of the internal affairs. And so I was the oldest of the 6 boys by 5.5 years. So when I first got out of college in 1975, my father wanted me to be a salesman. So for a year and a half, I worked on the sales desk, and I would never tell him, but I really did not enjoy it. But then the United Farm Workers, Cesar Chavez, and that union, they won an election on our ranch. And when they won that election, that was 1977, they moved me out to help my uncle. And that was the happiest day of my life. And the challenges. And I also, in my younger days, I enjoyed sports, and the parallels between being a team player on a sport and then a team player in business, they're very similar. And so that was, I think, a strong building block for my career. I didn't really realize that at the time, but it proved to be very beneficial.
Yeah. This might be a little bit of a tougher question, but throughout the years you face crazy realities with weather and growing pains and all that. What's been in that time one of the hardest challenges you face, and how did you face it, and how did you solve the problem?
Yeah, that's another good question, Stephen. I remember very clearly the most difficult year that we ever had, and we measure our 12 months not by the calendar, but by when we start shipping produce. And the earliest areas would be the fall time down in the desert. We used to have iceberg lettuce, romaine, cauliflower, broccoli, and we would start off on that. In the year 1990 in the fall, and then it transitioned into the spring of 91 into the summer, all of the markets were so poor. There was so little demand. And we were shipping from a lot of acres and a lot of different commodities. That 12-month period was by far the greatest challenge for me personally, because when there's not demand for our produce, then the buyers and the retailers, they look at everything more closely, because if it doesn't meet their standard, they can find produce anywhere. All the other shippers have it. And that was a really, really challenging year. And I'm a type A person. I really prefer to have everything in order. And in my line of business, it's not in order all the time. You can see the rainbow behind us. We've had a lot of rain, so we're trying to get fields planted, and we're in a delay period right now. But as I've gotten older, it always works out. It always works out.
Yeah. In this line of work, it's kind of clairvoyant that you need to be passionate about, the work that you do to get those early mornings, out of bed and whatnot. Yeah, I've seen shifts in that mentality, at least from like growing up and then seeing like what people my age are at, and I even struggle too with myself in that. Where do you find that? Now obviously it's a different stage of your life, right? But through the years, where did you see and feel that passion stemming from?
Yeah, that's, it was interesting. I would probably answer that by saying I didn't know any different. That passion a lot of times is a disposition of an individual. And I would say there was drive in me in what I did. Again, whether it was sports or whether it was my family or in this case, the business. And the beauty of what I was presented with, I have a younger brother who's my business partner, and Bill's passion is equal to mine. His is focused on the sell side. He's more like our father was. He manages, he oversees all the movement of our produce over the 12 months. And then he also is responsible for all of our internal affairs, like in the relationship with Jordan Energy. That really falls under my brother's responsibility. I know what's going on, but yet he's the one that will evaluate opportunities, what's the ROI on it, and then we have quarterly family board meetings where Bill has 2 sons and a son-in-law that work full-time for the company. I have a son and a son-in-law. And the 7 of us, along with our CFO and general manager, we come together quarterly and we work hard to map out not just what we're doing right then, but what's the 2-year plan? What is the 5-year plan? And that's where Jordan Energy became, I would say, an easy decision for us because it represents sustainability. So Bill and I determined several years ago, 25 years ago, if we're going to give our children opportunity, we want to build sustainability. And that came from the development of this project where we're at, 52 acres in Tracy, California. And it now really handles sweet corn, berries, watermelons, and there's other items that will come in. And yet with Jordan Energy, it was really kind of a no-brainer for us. This is a long-term, we hope this goes on to my grandchildren's time.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we put in renewable energy? It just makes 100% sense to have that as part of the overall operation.
Yeah, and to a farmer that's looking for that generational kind of business and the longevity of it with solar, what would you tell somebody that is uneducated on solar, the process, and specifically for a farmer and the implementation of it into their lifestyle?
Well, I wouldn't hesitate to say if they're long-term thinkers, if they're thinking to have their business functioning for more than 20 years, that they have to look at renewable energy. And that's not only important to the company that would put it in, but it's important to our society. You know, the environment, we're all environmentally sensitive. And when we can harness, whether it's the sun or wind or geothermal, we want to do that. And we we have benefited from, I think our oldest project there in Brawley, California, is 12 years, I believe, right now, and it exceeded our pro forma. And we know that the projects that we're doing with Jordan Energy are going to do the same thing. Even as we've just completed the project in Calapat on the citrus facility, and now this one, and I believe we have a third project that'll begin for Brawley. So it's been really good.
Yeah, a term that came to me through John Nagy, who wrote an article from Notre Dame magazine on Lecture of the Sun, and Jordan Energy's work together, mainly kind of focused on Lecture of the Sun, talked about what it means to be a sun farmer, and that image, of farming and being in the field and rising with the sun is potent. So what's your reaction to that phrase, and kind of me looking at you and being like, oh wow, this is a sun farmer right here?
Yeah, that actually I've never really heard that term, but it makes sense for someone who's out in the fields, and I'm a farmer per se, even though I oversee the harvesting of our crops. We work the soil so that we can produce quality product at affordable prices. When we think about the sun, which is our greatest resource, that along with water and air, I mean, technology has allowed us within a very strong economic structure to harvest the sun ray, and it just keeps getting better. That's what I appreciate about Jordan Energy. I know that your company has worked hard to see what other options, new materials, whether it's how it's structured, the angles, all of the above. I mean, right here we have, I'm not sure how many panels, but it covers the parking area. And that's a benefit for our people when they're here working in the summertime. It offers shade. They benefit from that. We're up on the roof. It's a roof mount, and that's dead, wasted area. But now we have solar panels. So,
yeah, and a topic that gets brought up with me a lot from my friends is not understanding the finance aspect of it, of the investment in solar, the payback period. Obviously, there's different realities when you have grants and when you don't,
right.
And how big the system size is. How did the financial aspect work out so far for the solar investment, and and projections for the future?
Oh, it really is an easy decision. We're working again with your company, and you're very proficient in assisting, in this case, Five Crowns, to be able to not only investigate the grants that are available, government assistance, whether it be in the form of money available to create renewable energy or in tax benefits. And that has proved to be, again, I would use the word an easy decision. If our company, if we're saying we're only going to be here for 5 years, it wouldn't make sense. But we measure in 10-year, 20-year, even 50-year increments. That's why we chose to buy this ground that is right next to Interstate 5. Did it cost more? Absolutely it did. But it actually becomes a greater asset.
One thing that's now coming to my mind on the personal side is the dynamic of work-life balance, especially with being a family business and you being a business owner. I know my dad is a business owner, right?
Right.
How have you journeyed through that balance of work / personal life, and is there any advice that you would give somebody who wants to lead a successful business and then also have a very strong, prominent personal family life and faith life too?
Yes, it's a good question. That's a matter of priorities. So as a young person, even in my own life, when I I was married at 21. At that point, my wife and I together tried to organize what you just mentioned, Stephen. We tried to prioritize those areas that were going to make us stronger individually and also as a married couple and then eventually with children. So it goes back to our motto, faith, family, farm.
Mm-hmm.
And that again is simplistic, but it really does cover the full spectrum of what we want to do. And as the natural process, as a person gets older and they spend more time in a specific industry, whether it be, the solar development or farming and providing food to our country and the world, you become experienced in what is in front of you. I used to worry. I don't have many gifts, but I do have the gift to worry. And I would worry about the weather, the insects, market demand. And now, for over 50 years, I see it all works out. I just need to stay focused on what is responsible to my area. Mm-hmm. And that is, my brother and I work with growers. Our mode of operation is we work with growers not only in California and Arizona, but in Mexico, in Peru, up in Oregon, Idaho. And what has allowed us to do that is the reputation of the Majesty label. So the retail base, they feel confident that we can deliver product as we, structure it for the upcoming season, and that it's at an affordable level so they can pass that on to the consumer.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, a big kind of reality check for me when I was volunteering a whole summer at a farm and finally eating vegetables and then hearing from friends and complaints in the grocery store about certain things. I know that's definitely a huge part of your life. Is there anything you wish as a farmer people understood when they went to a grocery store to pick some produce or took a bite of that produce that you feel over the years has been missing in that kind of connection from farm to table, from farm to grocery store?
Yeah, it's another good question. The reality of it is that a person, your basic consumer, will never understand the dynamics of producing, let's say, a cantaloupe or a watermelon. But we're not expecting them to. But what we would like for all of them to understand is that we're in the outdoors. We're subject to weather fronts. It can be too hot. It can get too cold. And what we try to do is to synchronize our respective commodities to where we have a very balanced amount of units per week that we can sell on a consistent basis. So we've all often, my brother and I, and we're teaching the next generation, that it's like a table and it has 4 legs. One of the legs is the farm side of it. One of the legs is the harvest side. The third leg is the cooler and the processing, and the fourth leg is the marketing. Mm-hmm. And when all 4 of those legs are equally strong and placed in the right location, you have a very good chance to be successful. And so over time, we have been able to build the reputation with, whether it's an Albertsons Safeway, Costco, Walmart, Raley's, whoever it might be, is a reputation that the produce will be there when they expect it.
My first word that comes to mind is just gratitude. Mm-hmm. We are so grateful to you and Bill and your whole team for considering doing solar. In an earlier segment, you said it was an easy decision. I was hesitant to grow west from New York, where we raised our family, because a lot of solar companies got ahead of their skis. But in reality, you've helped us in having solid installations here on the West Coast, and I want to just express gratitude.
Well, what's interesting, Bill, is that you and we were raised to appreciate family.
Yeah.
I think back when we were younger on how we would come together at Thanksgiving or try, if we went to the coast, to try to have meals together, and we always had love and respect. So for my brother and I, it's actually a very exciting venture to be able to partner with Jordan Energy.
It was about 20 minutes to say hello and 20 minutes to say
Yeah.
goodbye. You had to hug everybody,
Oh,
and that
the
was a fun
best.
time of craziness. Because
It
a big
was.
family.
Yeah.
We would go on Christmas to the Imperial Valley with
Yeah,
Nana.
that's right. Your
and
father would
Betty.
carve. I used to love watching your father carve the turkey. He was so exact.
Everybody was hungry. Come
Oh.
on, can you speed it up?
Yeah.
Right?
And he did not speed it up. He was on his own schedule.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, growing up in San Diego, food became so important for me in studying political science at Notre Dame because of this objective of, it's not right that people are going hungry on this planet.
100%.
And if you think about how much food you've produced over these 55 years, it's pretty incredible. And we can feed the whole world, but it's not a foregone conclusion. So I, saw your dad, our Uncle Tony, and just that model of working a family business was just so inspiring. And to see how it's evolved for you, I hope for some of the same. I've expressed that as we've gotten, our son and our daughter involved in the business.
I see, that excites me to know Stephen and Bernadette are part of this now. We would use the word legacy. I don't know what percent of our population has the opportunity to create legacy, but I think our foundation, our family foundation, has given us at least the desire to create. And now with Jordan Energy, you have something that's very tangible. It's necessary in our society, and now you have your children. There's really nothing better.
Well, I remember we came back from Chile, and I think your dad was in his early 70s.
Okay.
And we were there in Brawley, and you were in the driver's seat of the pickup truck, and he was in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, I hope when I get to my uncle's age that I have that same relationship. And all the time you were able to have with your dad, with Uncle Tony,
Right.
There's no price tag on that.
There is no price tag. That's an intangible. It's hard to describe. How do we describe the word love? But yet I felt the love always of a family atmosphere and the synergies that existed within the family. And like with your two children, I would encourage them, now that they're working with you, to embrace what you have done, what you have walked through, and that would be to their benefit. And that's what I was able to do with my father and uncle.
Yeah. And I love the part of the story that you just shared, that it wasn't your inclination towards the sales desk, but when you were able to get mentored with Uncle Tony, that you found your vocation, the growing side.
And that really goes back to what I believe is the hand of our Lord. I have felt that throughout my life, and so to me, to be able to honor Christ is my greatest gift. I think of the wife I have and her love for Christ, and now our children, and now our 7 grandchildren. So it has been a storied life, and I never want to take that for granted.
Yeah.
I would even recommend to Stephen and Bernadette, what I had to learn was every day was a gift. And we would look at 3 and 6 month crops, and you understand that. And yet I had to not forsake the opportunity that day offered to me, and going out to the fields and making decisions, and knowing that every decision influences the outcome of our crops.
A lot of good decisions when you have an environment that, you're not going to get it right every time, but you certainly learn from the mistakes. I've made a few, but I've tried to minimize them in our growth trajectory of Jordan Energy. So now we're at a great juncture, and I do think that our core value is doing solar in ways that strengthens family farms.
That's powerful.
There's a lot of people that are in the solar industry that want to maximize their profit.
Sure.
But farmers have worked with the land for the generations like you. And so why not be primary beneficiaries in the energy sector of this energy independence? So I end as I started with tremendous gratitude that you and Bill were open to working with us, and it's been a huge help to us. So,
That really pleases me, not that we're anything special, but that we have a first cousin that not only is in an industry that we benefit from, but does an excellent job, and that's the key.
wow, top quality, right?
That's it, so we
learned that
hear-
from our parents.
That's right, we did, so,
Thank you.
okay, good.
Fly Eagles fly.